Welcome to our Teen Book Talk with young adult authors Cristy Watson, and I'm Lyndi Allison. Today, we'll share our thoughts on relationships in the young adult stories we read and write. You'll find our bios and contact information in the description. We're happy to answer your questions or entertain ideas about topics you may have, so feel free to post them in the comments or send them to us using the contact information. Now, since teens experience many types of relationships, we see those play out in our stories. Relationships, both functional and dysfunctional, contribute to who we are and who we're becoming. This is important for teens, so it becomes important in literature, both to see oneself and to develop compassion and understanding for others. So, Cristy, what young adult books have you read recently in which there is a significant relationship?
Well, thank you, Lyndi, and as usual, thank you for having me here today. One of the books I am sharing today opens with a content trigger warning. And it got me thinking about how life should also come with the trigger warning, because life, which is really all about relationships, is hard work. And as a teacher, I worked with an at-risk population for most of my career. This provided me with often painful insights into the challenges young people face in many of their relationships. I finished my last years of teaching before retiring as a facilitator of peace circles, a safe place to build community and connection, and again found that the main theme being shared by young people was about struggles in relationships with friends, family, and adults in the community. Relationships are tough. They require trust and vulnerability. Relationships with adults can be even harder for young people, and navigating relationships takes courage, perseverance, and the ability to forgive when mistakes are made. I'm glad there are books that young people can turn to that explore relationships in real ways and offer hope, offer the chance for a significant person in one's life to be there to support and listen, to offer guidance, and to allow room and space for each individual to find their own way. It's always easier to move forward when we feel supported by at least one caring friend or significant adult. So in Careful What You Wish For by Mahtab Narsimhan, the tale shared a unique and cautionary message around relationships, but in this case it was about our relationship with social media and the world of online apps. How much trust do we put into the world at the end of our fingertips, the world we cannot physically see in front of us? Do we sometimes put more stock in that world than in the real people in our lives? And what is the emotional cost? In this story, the main character, Ishana, ignores her friends as she gives more power to an online app called I Wish. To bullying she is enduring via social media from classmates, and to her own worries and fears. Giving power to those things takes her away from herself. But she is able to finally see the truth when she listens to her true friends, and just in the nick of time. The theme of this book resonates with me in regard to navigating tough relationships. While teaching, I would hear countless tales from young people being harmed emotionally by things that they saw or read online, and I began to notice how great the need is for support around cyber management, education, and health. Mahtab's story is frightening, not only with its theme of some other power granting Ishana her wishes, but with the truth it reveals about our all-consuming relationship with social media and the online world. And I also recently enjoyed reading Union by Sara Cassidy. This story was told in first-person verse by a male protagonist, bringing the reader directly into the book at an emotional level. The reveal around what Tuck endures is painful and poignant, but meeting a girl he had known when he was in elementary school before the trauma happened allows him to find his way again in the present moment. Because they'd been friends previously and there was an established trust between them, their burgeoning relationship as young adults, and how Grace gently hears Tuck's story and continues to accept him, is huge. Having a co-worker who believes in him also allows Tuck to not only move forward, but to connect with another staff member from a different store in the chain who trusts him to talk with other staff about joining the union, to work towards fairness and equity in their workplace. This theme also connects with how Tuck views himself and his life, encouraging him to see that he needs to be fair to himself, but they can also allow himself to be vulnerable in this new relationship. But this only happens because of the care that Grace and his co-workers show him, helping to counter the abuse he suffered from his mother's boyfriend, and to learn to trust again. Grace and Tuck's co-workers support and listen to him and fill the void left by his mother's emotional absence. Positive relationships in this story balance the harmful ones and help Tuck to begin to heal. So, Lyndi, what significant relationships have you read about in a young adult story?
Well, thank you, Cristy, for introducing me to both those books. They're new to me, and I can see how important they could be for young people. So I'm going to talk about The Camino Club by Kevin Craig, and it's told from the point of view of several young people who meet an old man named Bastien Mercier as they traverse the El Camino. Now, when I mentioned to Kevin that I was going to talk about Bastien, he told me his character is modeled after a real person and was one of his favorite characters to write. I'll focus my thoughts today on one of the point of view characters. When Diego falls and hits his head, Bastien helps him walk to a town at the top of a hill where Diego can have his wound tended to. Diego tells Bastien not to wait for him while he gets cleaned up and bandaged. Unlike Bastien, who walks the Camino by choice, Diego and the other teens are court mandated to walk because they did something bad. Not really bad, but bad enough to go to a juvenile detention center. But Bastien explains that helping each other is what they do on the Camino, saying, all pilgrims are pilgrims, and it's okay to need help. Bastien once needed assistance while walking the El Camino, and someone helped him. That night, Diego finds out that his grandmother passed away, and Bastien comforts him. As the youth stargaze, Bastien shows how the Milky Way points the way for them and suggests that the stars shine that night for Diego's grandma. Since Diego promised his grandmother he would walk the Camino, he decides to continue. Bastien joins the teens' pilgrimage, sharing insights as to what they will find on the trail and in life. Along their journey, Bastien becomes vulnerable in sharing how he walks for his wife and daughter, both of whom have died. This creates a safe space for the teens to also become real and share their griefs, losses, and choices. At the statue of Jose Maria Cuna, the teens remove their shoes and they're coached to leave their anger, sadness, exhaustion, loss, jealousy, and greed on the hill of joy. Diego reflects on how he started walking because he was bad, but now he realizes the teens are all walking away from something or to something, some of them even both. When he puts down his pack, he feels free of its weight. As someone who's previously walked the Camino, Bastien is a bright star ahead of these teens and alongside them. He walked with purpose and shared his knowledge, music, life, and wisdom. Because he listens to the teens and is vulnerable, the teens embrace this old man and are able to open up, share, and support one another. This is relationship interaction at its best and makes the Camino Club a great read. Now, Cristy, in addition to reading about significant relationships, what have you been writing about for young adult readers?
Well, thank you, Lindy. And I just loved hearing about this wonderful story and have to check it out as well. And I loved the opening notion about how it is okay to seek help. So wonderful. In my own writing, I tackle relationships in all of my stories. In fact, they are often the main theme and thrust of the book. In On Cue, a re-release of the original story in an ultra-readable format, main character Randy, short for Miranda, loves the theater and acting. But when her drama class is cut due to budget restraints and ends up occurring as an extracurricular activity after school, she's faced with making the pursuit of her passion fit with watching out for her younger brother Toby, who is autistic. She loves her brother, but finds that as she is now in high school, she's enjoying the freedom of being on her own and not having as many demands on her to watch Toby all the time. But when she discovers she has to bring him to her high school after hours to participate in the drama club, she sees that this poses a whole new and unique set of problems. To add to this, she struggles to talk with her mum about her feelings and hopes, another example of how hard it can be to navigate relationships with family. But finding her voice as an actress helps Randy to also find a way to voice her needs, to show that she loves her mom and her brother, but that she also has to have time to find her way in the world, to discover what brings her joy, because then, when she engages with her family, the relationships will be stronger. Relationships are about give and take and sharing, and one can do that better when their own well is filled. And for Randy, that means having time to foster friendships with others and to pursue her passion for acting. That also means trusting herself and the relationship with her mum so that she may share her hopes and needs. And in my other book, Locked Up, one that came out just before the pandemic, Kevin finds all relationships tricky after his mum leaves. Losing trust with one parent and then blaming his dad for the breakup makes it hard for Kevin to connect with him. Often losing trust in one person can permeate all other relationships, making one more reluctant to reach out, maybe to communicate or to risk getting to know someone new, or maybe even to make an assumption that anyone new in one's life will do the same things that other people have done before. So for Kevin, that means worrying that the girl he likes at school won't like him back, and it means not having open communication with his dad. And though it isn't the best way to handle things, Kevin makes some choices that land him in juvie, a little bit like the story you were sharing, Lindy. Blame and a lack of trust in your most significant relationships, like the ones with our parents, can affect all other relationships and either make them stronger or perhaps taint them with a lack of trust and disconnection. Locked Up explores how to find one's way back into relationships, though it can still be messy and confusing and emotionally trying. Through tough relationships on the inside and facing the hard ones on the outside, Kevin begins to accept his early parole and learns to forgive himself. Opening the door to self-forgiveness allows him to work through the harm he caused another family and to begin to build a connection with them. That gives him insight into the strained relationship he has with his dad, and hopefully means he can begin to mend that one as well. And once again, it all comes down to relationships. So now I'm going to turn it back to our gracious host. Lindy, what relationships have you been currently writing about?
Well, first, Cristy, thanks for sharing from both those stories. I've had the chance to read them both and highly recommend them. And, I couldn't agree with you more. The characters and the relationships, they're what drives the plot in the story and makes them so real. So I recommend them for sure. So the relationships I'm sharing today from my reading and writing, they're actually taken from two perspectives that are discussed in the Summer Triangle trilogy. So in The Bridges Between Us, which is book 2, when Jace and Gloria talk about the Northern Cross, Gloria tells Jace to think of people as bright stars and the lines between them as their journeys. And as Bastian role modeled so well, she goes on to explain, we all need people ahead of us who guide, people alongside us to encourage, and people behind us to pass on what we know. Now, this passing on of knowledge isn't age dependent. We had wisdom from an older man, from Bastian, but wisdom can also be gleaned from those who are younger as well. Children who have fewer experiences can often see the truth more clearly as they're not bogged down with triggers and negative responses to life situations. These can limit a belief in a positive outcome. As Ellen MacArthur, yachtswoman, puts it, when you're a child, anything and everything is possible. The challenge so often is hanging on to that as we grow up. Now, in The Clashing of Our Worlds, Book 3, young Fira believes all things will work out despite their dangerous circumstances that say otherwise, and she shares her belief that mistakes are learning opportunities. Jace clashes with Fira's tribe when they refuse to use weapon against the Typho who are poisoning their children. Acting on the guilt he feels over the loss of his baby sister, he decides to raise up another tribe who will protect the Pan. However, in doing so, he accidentally raises another army against the tribe. Yet the Pan aren't upset with them. They know he wanted to help and his instincts were to protect them. Young Fira says, no one knows how to do their roles without making mistakes as they learn. And she tells him not to worry about their enemy. The destroyer always becomes the destroyed. Gloria recognizes Fira's wisdom and takes it to heart. As they face the enemy later in the story, the one that Jace raised, Gloria reminds him about Fira's words so he can focus on helping the Pan overcome their enemies and still keep their values. Children often have knowledge that is helpful. I don't want to give too much away, but in our Journeys to the Stars, the last book in the forthcoming The Winter Hexagon trilogy, Jace and Gloria are helped by Rascal and the other children who live on the streets in Athens. As street kids, they have keen insights into how their society functions and how to survive the gods' antics. They're instrumental in helping Jace find the seeds he needs to take back to Earth to heal his mom's cancer. While teaching and volunteering with streetwise children and youth, I learned much about why our school system and other systems weren't working for them. And I also heard their suggestions on how to fix them, some of them keen and insightful. I also learned a way or two they played against these systems to get what they needed. Being teachable and willing to learn from others, regardless of age or position, and being willing to share knowledge that is helpful goes a long way to building relationships. As a bit of an introvert, it's hard for me to say this, but social interaction and support from people of all ages are key to emotional stability and overall health. So now, Cristy, you often tackle how trust impacts relationships. Can you share more on that?
Oh, absolutely, Lyndi. Thank you. And just before I jump in, I can't wait to read the rest of the Winter trilogy. And I loved that whole notion of, the stars being the connection and the path and the guiding and all of that part that you put into the second portion of the discussion. So important. So when young people have relationships with their family and community that show trust, and that the adults can be relied upon, it allows the individual to take risks and make new connections with others, build friendships, and have solid relationships. But when trust has been broken, it may mean that the person worries that others will hurt them too, and so they don't take a chance on forming new relationships. I used to say to teachers of students who struggled socially and emotionally that the youth often said and did things that turned people away because, at least for them, they then felt they were in control of that relationship and in control of the hurt that comes when people let them down. We know that learning to trust again is hard, and I do explore this theme in most of my books. In two of my other books, Dead to Me and Cutter Boy, it does again all come down to trust. In Dead to Me, my main character Logan loses trust in his uncle and then doesn't trust others. He becomes angry and disengaged. In Cutter Boy, my main character Travis doesn't understand why his mom ignores him, so he doesn't trust himself. He's lost and confused. And unfortunately, self-harm becomes one of his ways to cope with this loss of a sense of self and the emotional pain he experiences. So my hope in exploring relationship themes in my stories is that young people can see themselves reflected in the main characters or even in the secondary characters, and can come to accept themselves, love themselves, trust themselves, and open up to others, or maybe to give them insight into how to help someone they care about who's struggling. Perhaps the caring person in their lives comes in the form of someone they meet in our books. So, Lyndi, in your writing, you share a lot about communication and how it affects relationships. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, I believe that one of the biggest contributing factors as to whether a relationship works or not is communication. And personally, I struggle with this, right? Seeking to understand others and desiring to be understood. It's really a personal challenge. So it works its way into my stories. Maybe others experience that too. So perhaps that's why my character Draca, the alien in the lines between her stars, struggles to communicate with Jason Gloria. According to her, Earthlings have too many utterances and they say little. And she notes how the teens don't communicate to the point of understanding one another. Unprocessed anger hinders our ability to listen and seek to understand. And while having angry feelings is normal in our world, we can find something new every day to be angry about. When Gloria, who is grieving, gets mad at her mom, she says cruel things to her. And she accuses her of causing her dad's accident because her parents fought the night he went out and was hit by a car. Then, while she is light years from home on another planet, her communication with her mom is cut off before she's had a chance to repair the relationship. She feels guilty for what she said, and she can't apologize. Jace agrees that Gloria was hard on her mother, but he also comforts her with the knowledge that her mother knows her words were said in anger because Gloria was grieving. We need to be careful what we say, even when we're angry. I know that can be easier said than done. And as Cristy so rightly mentions, relationships are hard work. Also, when someone speaks to you in anger, that doesn't mean that they don't love you. It could mean they're hurting or scared for you. There are many times on the teen's journey that they clash due to their different points of view. So Jace, he approaches life through this mathematical or scientific lens. Well, Gloria, she approaches it more from an artsy or from the stories that she reads. In the lines between her stars, Jace learns how Gloria finds meaning in the story she reads, and then these insights that she gleans from them help them in their current circumstances. But in the bridges between us, when Jace attempts to do the same thing, it messes them up more. So Gloria suggests to Jace that he needs to seek answers according to his own aptitude for mathematics and science. And when he does, he's able to find the keys they need to open a lab to find out what's going on. Ultimately, Jace and Gloria learn to see each other's point of view. Sometimes. And even if they don't always agree, they understand where the other is coming from. Most times. like most of us, they still have places they need to heal, and we can't always come to a place of understanding. Sometimes we have to accept that we can't understand and agree to disagree. And that can be, hard to do, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So, Cristy, you continue to write about relationships. What relationships are you writing about now?
Well, thanks, Lyndi. In one of my current works in progress, I explore relationships and how my main character is always trying to please his dad and wants nothing more than for his father to be proud of him. Because Salt doesn't have that from his dad and he equates a father's pride with love, he finds it hard to love himself. He doesn't trust in the relationship he has with his parent, and that makes it hard for him to come to trust himself and to extend trust to others. And one of the things I gleaned from what you were just sharing was how in our stories, and what I know from having read the first summer trilogy of your books, that we do grow. Characters grow, relationships grow, and there's something so wonderful about that and having that shared in story. So, Lyndi, what else are you working on currently?
Yeah, I continue to see how we're like-minded in so many things, Cristy. So in the Winter Hexagon trilogy, Jace and Gloria, this time they're exoplanet hopping, but not to rescue alien children. They're trying to bring home the seeds they need to make the tea that will help to heal Jace's mom and her cancer. But due to his mom's illness and his father's absence, Jace lacks parental support, and he often takes on the role of caregiver for his mom. Whereas Gloria now accepts the support of the caring adults in her life, and this provides her with emotional stability. So we see for Jace, though, his lack of support affects his decision making and risk taking.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you were mentioning, I love this was the flip side of what I'm dealing with here. You said, you know, when people are able to trust others, they're able to take risks. But in Jace's case, because he doesn't have the support, he risk takes in ways that aren't good and puts them in danger because he's just so desperate and he hasn't had that support. So, you know, flipping the coin really illustrates the same truth, doesn't it?
It really does.
And that's another teen book talk. Goes quickly.
It does.
Thank you, Cristy, for your care and concern for young people and in your reading and writing about relationships.
Thank you. And the same goes back to you, Lyndi, as well, for opening doors to talking about tough subjects and to learn how communication can really support growth for everyone in their relationships. And I really appreciate being invited to chat with you as always. I hope the folks that are listening in today have found some insight into relationships that we present as storytellers and how important it is to have these messages in books for young people to access.
Yes, relationships are so integral in our lives. And we could make an entire series of teen book talks of just about how relationships play out in our stories. But if you have anything to add or as a topic you'd like to discuss, please share it in the comments. And most importantly, keep reading and writing.